All right. We are live. Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. Glad you are here. We've got a great show lineup tonight. We've got Steve Mayer with us. This is going to be an awesome episode. If you didn't catch the first time that he was on the show, just 5 weeks ago, I believe he was on the show, and it was an amazing episode. We talked a little bit about the plan for a future show, and we talked about that we planned on having a discussion, a deep discussion on speed flying. And so tonight, that is what we're going to do. If you're listening to this after the fact, invite people to watch this. If you have speed flying pilot friends that maybe haven't got tuned in, maybe send this to them, send the link to them. There's going to be things that they're going to learn in this episode that may save their lives or save them from getting injured. I want to say special thanks to Steve for coming on the show. I know he's a busy man, and he's a popular figure there at Point of the Mountain. If you don't know who he is, you can catch the link in the description to get a hold of him. Paragliders.com is his website. And you're going to find he's got a great reputation in the sport, probably one of the elite, I would argue, and a legend. So before we get this fired off, I want to just mention a couple sponsors, pbgzone.com. He is a sponsor of the show, and he has a social media platform that he created for pilots. Also, midwestparajet.com. They are a sponsor of the show. PBG Smoke, Ryan Roberts, he's got all kinds of stuff that he's added to the flying community. If you can check out his website, it's pbgsmoke.com. Also, shows brought to you by paramotorprops.com. If you're looking for a great deal on props, there is a place where you can literally just go and buy some props. paramotorprops.com. Also, Para Orange Products, Larry and Chris, they've made all kinds of things to protect your gear, including prop covers, weatherproof motor covers. He has some really great windsocks, pole streamers. Check out his website, paraorange.com or paraorangeproducts.com. Thank you. Special thanks all to the Patreon supporters and PayPal supporters. Thank you for keeping the show going, and you keep flying great. So, Steve, want to just fire right off. I don't want to take up any more time. You've got, even before the show, you started to just take off, and man, some great information was flying. Anthony had to stop you because it's such good content. We couldn't let the people miss it. So I want to fire off first by saying that there was an incident literally the night that you were on the show, and there was an accident. And that was at your home site, and it involved some speed flying. I want to just ask you, what details is there anything we can learn from it? Is it okay to talk about? Can we gather something from this, and what do you have for us?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, as we were having the show, my phone started lighting up, and I just assumed it was all my friends telling me how good looking I was on your show. But it was people asking information about this accident. And 100% we can learn from it. And, it's one of those where I hate to be like, I told you so, or, that's what happens. But, we were talking about the show, about the safety of speed flying. And I'm still here to argue that speed flying is incredibly safe, much potentially safer than paramotoring or paragliding because of the inherent wing loading that we have. We have a very stable wing, and we have a very maneuverable aircraft. So we can get into that later. But, I was talking about what makes it dangerous is when people decide to go upside down. You got your wing and you do this. And, we do different combinations of tricks to go upside down. One of the more basic yet prevalent one is the barrel roll. And I've just seen and heard of so many people not getting all the way around on a barrel roll and having all kinds of issues and problems, and have had several friends killed doing barrel rolls, and yet people continue to do them. And it just blows my mind. So I'm very anti upside down. I'm very anti barrel roll. I think the sport's fun enough and extreme enough without having to go upside down. That being said, if you choose to do that and you understand what you're getting yourself into, there is a path to learn this stuff. It's very long. It's very expensive. And people want to skip it. So the accident that happened, unfortunately, was the guy that was becoming a good friend of mine. He was one of my students. His name's Danny. Um, he was just the absolute go to the max kind of guy. Races motocross, base jumper, skydiver. Learned to paraglide very quickly. He's one of those guys that scares you how well he does and how fast he picks things up. Picked up speed flying. He'd been flying his wing for maybe a year, his speed wing. Didn't live in Utah, so I didn't get a chance to really watch his progression much, but he'd just gotten back to town, and he and I had been out riding motorcycles together and really enjoying each other's company, and had some really good conversations about his lifestyle. He and I were out paramotoring the day before we went on your show, or 2 days before actually. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, Steve, I did my first barrel roll." And he, sorry, it's kind of blinking out. He goes up for a high five, and I pulled away, and I was like, "Dude, a barrel roll? Like, really? Okay, I'm not going to high five you. I'm not, you know how I feel about that. Go slow, be careful. It's a big boy game." He was also flying a fairly entry level speed wing, which may or may not have contributed to his accident, where some of the wings don't have the energy to get all the way around. Am I going to tell you when you come up to buy a glider, "Oh, this is not the right one to barrel roll"? No, I'm going to say this is a beginner speed wing. This is what you should start with, which is what he chose. A very stable wing, which makes it a little more difficult to get all the way around. So he did his first barrel roll 2 nights before. His friends later told me that he was getting coached on how to do it and said, "Oh man, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do one tonight because the SD card's full of my GoPro." And I'm only sharing these stories not to criticize him, but that's who he was. He went ahead and did one anyways. He didn't get the high five from me. Then during our show, he was out soaring, and we call that speed soaring now. That's kind of a new thing.
Right.
Where the wind is so strong that you can soar. You're ridge soaring, but on a speed wing. And when you're on a 14-meter speed wing, that takes a lot of wind to soar. And the dynamics change. The dynamics of how everything handles, how the glider turns, because now you're in probably 25 to 28 miles an hour of wind.
Wow.
And he went to do a barrel roll in wind. The first one he did was not in wind. So his second barrel roll ever. And I don't know the full details, but he basically got upside down, lost energy, went into his glider and collapsed, and he hit the ground. He died instantly on impact. So it was super tragic. Young guy. Interestingly enough, he'd written a letter to his family basically saying, "If you're reading this, my sport's caught up to me, but please, I love you. And I'm so thankful that you gave me these opportunities. And this is what makes me happy. This is what keeps me going." And that made me feel better, just knowing that he understood the risks.
Right.
But I still don't think he grasped what he was getting himself into. And that's a failure on all of our parts, on my part, especially as his instructor. Instead of not high-fiving him, I probably should have choked him out, but I chose not to. And instead we went and flew paramotors and had a great night. What did he do wrong? A lot of things. Went too fast, got instruction from maybe the wrong person, was on the wrong wing, was flying in the wrong conditions, wasn't over water doing an SIV. The list can go on and on. But the simple fact is he took a speed wing and he went upside down. And if you don't quite get all the way around, that's it. And that was it. Game over.
So you get the call. I mean, it's obviously going to affect you as an instructor and as a friend. I've asked this of other people, how do you process this, and what is it that you're bringing to the next group that you say, look, this guy passed away. And I know we're filling in the gaps. What is what would you say is the main takeaway? What is the main thing about, obviously it's the barrel roll, but what is the main thing that you would say, what, this has to happen if you're going to get involved in speed flying?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a hard one. It affects everybody differently, and it kills me. I mean, I didn't want to go to work the next day, and I had to, and more than anything, I had to go answer questions and talk to the family and talk to his friends and explain what happened, which I didn't have all the answers. So I had to gather all the information, which is the first step. I want to know why everything happened in as many details as I can, to prevent it from happening again, though it's happened again and again and again. I don't know. It's enough to make you want to quit. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'm not, because I love it and I still feel it can be done safely.
Yeah.
I had some discussion with some top speed flyers, and I don't want to say they just don't get it, but there's some guys, there's just a whole new segment of people that are just pushing the envelope. And
It's a culture.
It's a culture. It's the young skydiving crowd. And I don't want to pick on skydivers, but
Right.
I'd say the vast majority of accidents I've seen, I'm trying everything I can to slow it down. You know, there is a new training program coming down the pipe with USPA. A guy,
Really?
Carl, is working on it. I don't have all the details. I was asked to be part of it, and I honestly, it just slipped by.
Something's happening though. That's cool.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to go the right direction though. We'll see. I'm fearful. You know, I think part of the rumor that I heard is it's not going to require a P2 rating. I was really against that when it first came out, but Yushka basically said, to have your speed flying endorsement, you have to be a P2 pilot. And we were like, oh man, that's horrible. But it totally makes sense now.
Oh,
They need to learn all the basics and all the background and all the weather. So I hope that part of it doesn't go away. I wish I had more details, and I don't. But look for it. I hope what happens, and I hope the takeaway from all this is, I hope there becomes some more advanced speed flying courses. You know, you talk about Brad Ganesha, one of my best friends. You know, Brad does an amazing thing for the sport of paragliding and paramotoring. You know, what he offers with his SIV clinics, and other guys too. You know, Torrey Pines offers them, and Cody Matank offers them. But having anybody that's going to get into any form of advanced flying, you know, and I always say, I'm a recreational pilot. I don't need to take an SIV clinic because I'm recreational, and that's as far as I'm going to go.
Right.
I say that tongue in cheek, but I don't think everyone needs to take a Brad course. But if you're going to be a thermal pilot, try to go cross country and try to do big stuff, 100%, you know, you're going to need one or two. Speed flying, if you're going to do dynamic ridge soaring, you're going to need more than what I taught you how to speed fly. If you're going to go do barrel rolls, you're going to need more. And right now, nobody's really offering that. There are guys out there teaching it, but it's not like log on to my website and, you know, here's how you sign up for the barrel roll course. But there needs to be that. I don't want to teach it. I'm going to just say, but why? I have no interest in teaching that. You know, Brad's able to do it high over water. Speed flying, nobody wants to be high on a speed wing. First off, it's very difficult to get high because we're not thermaling. We can't really tow them. There's some debate about if we can tow speed wings or not, but let's just say you can't, because I think it's probably not a great idea. So, you know, when you do acro should be done over water, period. It shouldn't be done over the ground. Speed flying barrel rolls should be done over the water, but it's not. It's done over the ground. And
man, really what a great point.
Yeah. So I don't know what that future looks like. I think there are guys out there like Carl here in Utah that are willing to teach some of those higher end courses. I'm just not, because I know the outcome is not going to be pretty. And, you know, I've seen now 5 people go in speed flying that were all very advanced pilots, very advanced people. I'm not going to say pilots, because it's hard to say you're advanced if you die doing what you're. Yeah. But advanced canopy pilots from one discipline or the other. Yet I'm still going to argue how safe speed flying is, because I'm just adamant that it can be done incredibly safe. This morning, it's been super windy in Utah. We had probably 15 guys ridge soaring speed wings today, and it was just beautiful. It's just, it makes me so happy to look up. It was way too windy to paraglide. We were all just down at the bottom kiting, and there's like 15 of my friends up there just crushing it on speed wings. Nobody was going upside down. They were all having a blast, sliding across the hill. You know, we kind of practice dragging our feet. I mean, there's just so many cool things you can do.
I've done it at Torrey Pines a couple times when it was really windy. Not super tiny, not a micro wing, but I think it was say 14 meter. I'm about 150 pounds. It was, you know, I just stayed up. It was fun and fast, and I enjoyed it. There is this temptation to just want to go faster and faster. You progress into something else. This happens with the paramotor people. And I know we talked a little bit about this before the show. Maybe let's segue into the wing loading conversation and transfer some of that information over to paramotoring.
Yeah, you said something interesting, and that's exactly what I want to touch on. You said you're soaring a 14 meter. I think a really important thing for people to realize with speed wings is size isn't everything. In a paraglider, when we talk like a 30 meter or whatever, it's fairly universal across the board what that means. But on a speed wing, well, let's call it a mini wing, because the whole discipline we call mini wings. That's what you should decided to call anything without a rated weight range. We're calling mini wings. Within the mini wing category, you sort of have three calibers of three disciplines, let's call it. You have true speed wings, and those are going to be the really fast, aggressive, big, fat cell openings, shorter lines, so you're closer to the canopy, really maneuverable, and that's what's really made for ground hugging. If you're going to be ski launching and flying in and out of rotors, in and out of wind shadows, you want to be on a speed wing, a true speed wing, okay? And then the other category is you have a mini wing. Again, it's all called mini wing, but let's call it a mini wing, which is a mini paraglider. It's going to have longer lines. It's going to look like a paraglider. It's just going to be smaller. And then you have kind of a hybrid, which is halfway in between the two. It's not really a true speed wing. It's not really a mini paraglider. It's a hybrid. So when we talk speed wings, a 14 meter speed wing is different than a 14 meter hybrid is different than a 14 meter mini wing. And a lot of people don't understand those. And they'll say, oh, my friend was on a 12 or a 13 or a 14. But that doesn't mean a whole lot. I think that gets a lot of people in trouble. They hear the number 9 thrown out there and they think, oh, I need a 9 or a 12 or an 18 or whatever. But you have to know more than that. You have to know what style of wing you're on, as much as anything. So I have 3 different 11 meters, and they're completely different wings for completely different things. And they're all 11 meters, but they are in no way similar. So I think that's a really important thing to know, first off. The other thing, touching along that, when we sign people off for mini wings, for a mini wing rating, we're not signing them off for all 3 disciplines. So the association, it's just means you've been introduced to the concept of mini wings, and we're supposed to educate you about all these different things. But I might only have you fly a mini paraglider because that might be all you're interested in. I had an instructor that taught for me, was an instructor. He had never once flown a speed wing, a true speed wing. He flew mini paragliders and occasionally hybrids, but he had never ski launched. He'd never flown a true speed wing. Yet he's an instructor issuing a rating for speed flying.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's really important for people to understand that because I'm signing you off doesn't mean you're good to go. You know what you're doing. So just get more instruction, get more clarification, and the people that are truly teaching speed flying, several places out here in Salt Lake and Saboba, and I'm sure there's others around. Make sure you really talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Even if you're only interested in one discipline, understand the entire realm of how this thing works. Because where a lot of these guys get in trouble is they pick up one discipline. And what normally happens is the skydivers pick up a true speed wing, which is very similar to a skydiving canopy. And they think, oh, wow, this is super fun. I want to buy now a mini paraglider, a mini wing, which can collapse and has the same dynamics as a paraglider without instruction. And they fly it into rotor and it collapses and they fall in. It's really bad. So, don't be hesitant to get in the sport, but go in and suck up as much knowledge. There's no textbooks out there. There's no training manuals. I hope all that changes. I'd love to be involved with something like that. If somebody wants to co-author a book with me, let me know. Because we need it. The world needs it, not just the US, but all over the world. And oddly enough, from talking to manufacturers, the US is one of the big hotbeds for mini wings in general.
No kidding.
Yeah, even more so than in Europe. They kind of saw a plateau. So we have a big push here. And I think it's just the USA go attitude, the extreme athletes. Skydiving is also significantly bigger in the US and other parts of the world. And that's a big draw. And I love working with skydivers. I have to rein them in.
We were raised on a different level of intensity. I'm right on the edge of the millennial Generation X line. It seems like all my life I've been exposed to extreme sports, and now with the social media in the palm of your hand, And some people are spending a lot of time in front of this social media stream of these wild, like you said, barrel rolls very close to the terrain. It seems like endless speed flying through gullies. And as soon as I became a paraglider pilot, I instantly have friends sending me, they immediately associate any paragliding or any parachuting or skydiving. They send me the videos, and every step of the way, it's like, oh my gosh, sometimes I can't even, I like extreme sports. Sometimes I can't even watch some of the barrel rolls that are so close to trees and rocks. And you just know it's going to be sure death if they make one tiny little mistake. And knowing what I know about rotor and, wind shadows and fronts and different variables, my hope is, like you're saying, talking about putting a book together or something, there would be something that these guys can make tangible before they go out and make a decision to go and try some of this stuff. Too many, in my opinion, are cutting the line.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and let me just mention, because we talked about this before the show, tying it back to paramotoring, I think a lot of people, even if you're not interested in speed flying, I think realizing that anytime you're flying a canopy below where you have a higher wing loading than the recommended manufacturer's recommended weight limit, you're flying a mini wing, period. That's what a mini wing is. It's something minier than what you should be on. So if you look at your paramotor contingent of people, there's a trend where people are going smaller and smaller with paramotor wings. And I do too. I love it because I don't need a thermal to go up. I got a throttle. So I actually downsize when I paramotor, and I do quite a bit of paramotoring. But realize that when I am paramotoring, I am flying a mini wing. That glider will not behave. It will not recover from collapses. It's going to have the same dynamics that we talk about when we educate people on speed flying. So I think everybody can take that into consideration. Anybody that knows a motor pilot that just it went from their 23 to a 19, realize that you're now basically speed flying with a paramotor on. And really making sure you understand the dynamics of how your paramotor wing or your paraglider wing is going to change as you get higher wing loading. I'm going to tell you it's safer in many ways to have higher wing loading.
Yeah.
But it's going to be more dynamic,
So in free flying, we talk a little bit about wing loading, and I'll give you an example. I fly at the top of my glider. I fly an Alpina 4 now. I fly at the top of the glider, which is 95 kilograms. The range is 75 to 95. That particular glider likes to be loaded right to the top. When I fly at the house, or in my backyard is Blossom. When I fly Blossom, I like to have a certain wing loading. I can tell a dramatic difference when I'm just 5 kilos away from the top. And I don't think necessarily that a skydiver pilot coming into speed flying is going to be able to notice the differences or balances. Is there a extreme difference when you're changing the smaller weights? Maybe talk a little bit about of some of that, if you can, translating what the wing is telling you, things like that.
Yeah. I wish I remembered the mathematical formula. It's one of the test questions on the P2 test, but force is squared. I don't know. I'm not going to say this right, because maybe one of you guys knows what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
But going from a 10 meter, say, to a 9 meter is not a 10% difference.
Right.
It's squared. So it's a massive difference when you go from the speed wings, they now go down. I have a 8 meter speed wing. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's so small. And I can tell a massive difference between my 8 meter and my 10 meter. So the first question I ask people when they want to downgrade is, why do you want to downgrade? Give me a good reason. And they normally don't really have one. I said, because, as you go smaller, it gets harder to land. You're restricted as far as, you got to run further to launch. It's more dynamic, but, what is it that, and if they have a good reason, then I agree with them. But more often than not, they don't. Speed wings don't have a weight range. So it's not like you say, I weigh 150 pounds and you don't look at the Ozone website or whatever company you're dealing with. and say, oh, I should be on this. That's an instructor that's going to talk you through it. And I'm a little, it's always interesting when I talk to students, they're like, hey, I called 5 people, which I think is wonderful. And they got 5 different answers. It makes me go, what are we doing? I don't know if it's wrong, but why is somebody getting 5 different answers from 5 different instructors on what wing they should be flying? And I'm not saying that I'm right. I am saying I've been doing it longer than anybody in the US, because I have been, and I've seen a lot of things. And I tell people that, this is only my opinion, but here's what happens. And we all know, hopefully we all know, that the higher the wing loading, the faster the glider is going to be, the more dynamic the handling, the closer to stall point, the more stable, but the worse it's going to recover when things go bad. So with high wing loading, everything's better generally, depending on your definition of better, until things go bad. And then they're going to be much more difficult to recover. So
much more dramatic.
Much more dramatic. Yeah. Collapse can be more
violent.
Dramatic. Everything's going to be more violent, and it's not going to recover the way the manufacturer suggests as you go higher wing loading. So like you, I fly at the very tippy top of my weight range. Almost all of us at our shop at Cloud9 fly at or above the weight range, but we understand that. But I think in general, most people like to fly heavy. Some coastal pilots like to fly light because they're flying smooth air and they like that lift. So if you're light on your canopy, let's talk about the other end.
Yeah,
the glider's going to be slower. It's going to be more likely to collapse. It's going to be more likely to frontal. It's going to be more likely for bad things to happen because you don't have the wing loading, but it's going to be much more tame. And I do this all the time with my training gliders. So first off, one of the things I do, which is kind of funny, and I share this with a lot of people, I think I'm being silly. I fly a lot of gliders, a ton, like probably 4 or 5 different gliders a month. Because everyone's like, hey, I have this and I have this. And I'm like, I like to get my hands on everything. And I'm lucky enough to be at a point in the mountain where literally you can grab a guy's glider, fly it for 5 minutes and land right next to him and be like, cool. So when I launch a glider, I turn left or right, depending on where the traffic is. So I pull a left turn, I pull a right turn, I reach up to the left wing tip, I collapse it, release it, reach up to the right wing tip, collapse it, release it. And then I add brake and I subtract brake. From that 20 seconds, probably, I can tell almost everything I need to know about a glider. And if you ever see me at the point of the mountain and hand me your glider, you're going to laugh because it's like, oh, that's exactly what he did. He turned left, he turned right, he collapsed the left wing, he collapsed the right wing, he did surge control. Because I want to know, how does that glider recover? Just by doing big years, basically, I can tell. And from doing it, it's pretty amazing. If I'm light on a glider, the thing's super easy to collapse and it just pops right open. If I'm heavy on it, it's really difficult to collapse. And everybody should know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, man, fly as many gliders as you can, and go do that. Just go play with the wing. Literally big years. That's collapses.
Yep.
Do that. See what the pressures feel like, and get used to doing that on different gliders. And you'll be amazed at how you start tuning into a glider's behavior.
Yeah, that's like Torrey Pines. If you can get to Torrey Pines glider port and go and it's like family. Once you've got your P3 and you're like, hey, what wing is that? A lot of times people are like, you want to fly? Go ahead, send it. And mostly in the free flight world, we have, I'm a mountain guy. I love flying in the mountains. It's like I feel like I'm part bird now, and it's a kind of a lifestyle. But when I see other guys coming up, I'm looking for an opportunity to talk to them, find out what they've learned, what they know, and that family, that camaraderie. I would say that's like a huge thing. We were talking a little bit about the culture, and I think it's one of the critical things that we're going to have to keep the balance is the OGs, I'll call them, the original guys that pioneered the sport. They've seen the bloodshed, they've seen the deaths and the carnage, and they're still around. And usually they're conservative and they've got some stories to tell that can spare some people. We're a generation that doesn't want to hear from the old school generation, and that's a detriment to the culture. If we get to the place where we just think we know everything, it's over. I want to say real quick, thanks to Will Fly donated $5 to the super chat. He said Resurgence rocks, and yes, Resurgence does rock. We're at the halfway mark. I want to give something away. But one of the guys in the chat, Charlie Walsh said he wanted to know how he can get one of your shirts. And,
What's up, Charlie? You know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, I'm going to show your website real quick. And Sean, if you want to queue up the wheel, just be ready for it. But I want, before you do that, don't screen share just yet. I'm going to just do a quick screen share myself. Here we go. So if you want to get a hold of Steve, this is his website, paragliders.com. And some details, some things in here. Contact. I literally, while we were talking, I was looking to see where we could, if we could get a Cloud9 t-shirt.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. We have two different. Yeah, you get buy gear.
Buy gear, okay.
Yeah, it actually takes you to a whole different website. So our shop is called Adventure Toy Store.
Oh, nice.
It's a long story, but it confuses a lot of people. So Cloud9 Paragliding is our school, and our repair shop, Adventure Toy Store, is the
sweet
the shop.
Cool. So there you have it, folks. If you want to buy some gear, you want to get yourself a nice t-shirt, you can sell Ozone shirts.
Oh yeah, Ozone's got awesome clothing. It's not cheap, but man, their clothing's great. You know, we're dealers for everybody, but we really love the Ozone stuff.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. There's your answer. Want to spin the wheel? We're going to give something away tonight. We're going to give away a little AMSOIL tonight.
All right. Some AMSOIL. Excellent. Give me just a second here. I'll get this all under wraps here. I suck at the internet. Hang on here.
Looking at these shirts while you're doing that. I came up with a shirt idea last night. It's in the works. I sent it to my shirt guy. And this is pretty awesome. Hold on, check this out. We were talking about getting spec'd. You guys know what the term is? Free flight pilots know. You say that, man, I was spec'd out. And it just literally means that you're super high. I want to make a shirt that says spec'd.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I made another one that said spec'd University. So he's going to hopefully he's going to make it. Hey, Crazy Uncle Bob donated $5 to the super chat, said, greeting fellow deplorable infidel flying squirrels. Hot Buttered Steve donated $10 to the super chat. And he said, take my money. I'll do it. Hot Buttered Steve. I'm glad you changed your name back to the correct name, because Hot Buttered Steve is great. Sean Nafsker is going to spin the wheel of winning things.
Give me just 1 second here. I'm trying to put these last minute names in.
Oh, we got some last minute people
at last seconds. Yes, that's right.
Yep.
Quite a many of them.
Screen. There we
awesome.
go.
Give me just a second here.
Earlier, Mark Rogers said thank you. He said, please tell Steve thank you. So Mark Rogers said thank you, Steve.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. No more names in the wheel. We're done with the names. So if you're coming in late, sorry, y'all. Can you see my screen really good?
I can see it. Yeah.
All right. You ready?
It is sideways for some reason. Can you flip the other way?
What's with that, huh? Okay. How's this?
Go.
Is this better?
We're cooking with Crisco.
Yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. I suck at the internet here.
Yeah.
All right.
You got one job.
Ready? I know. I'm doing the best I can. Ready, set, and off we go.
There it goes. The spin of this wheel is brought to you by Calamity Kite Clinic. If you want to up your game in ground handling, there's a great place to get ground handling tips and training. CalamityKiteClinic.com. Hey, my mom donated $10 to the super chat. Thanks, Mom. I have a feeling I'm going to have to pay that back to you somehow for your PR work. My mom asked me the other day, she was like, is PR stand for payroll? I was like, oh my gosh, no. It stands for personal relations. Dang, I almost won something.
Who's it going to be?
William Rice. Well, maybe Ryan Moore. That thing is greasy tonight.
I told you, man, I've been working hard on this thing.
Dude, that thing might even slide all the way to the Rip Man riding.
Oh, congratulations, Ryan Moore.
Ryan Moore is, by the way, Ryan Moore has given more money in the Patreon, or maybe it's on PayPal. Thank you, Ryan Moore, for being. See, it finally paid back. Your investment in the show. Ryan Moore, winner. Chicken dinner. Reach out to me on the website here. I'm going to remove the spotlight. It's paraglidingtalk.com/contact. And let me know your address and where you want me to send you your AMSoil. Stuff is really good, by the way. You can't buy it just anywhere. So if you need to get a hold of somebody that is a dealer, and I became a dealer of AMSoil literally just so I can get the good deal. So I can buy it and I don't have to call anyone. And also so I can hook up the homies. So I'm not trying to make any money on it. It doesn't, you got to sell, big buckets of this stuff to be able to make any money. I literally just do it just for fun and to hook up the friends. So, oh yeah. Yep. Congratulations. Winner, chicken dinner. So let's jump right back into the conversation about translating what the wing is telling you. Can you give any tips or hints to what we should be looking for, especially as maybe a newer pilot transitioning to faster wings? This is happening. So as much as we argue about it and say, you know what, they shouldn't be doing that. Okay, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Okay, they're still doing it. Just like you said, there's speed flying pilots that are doing barrel rolls and you're like, you shouldn't be doing that. Please don't. Why? I don't know why they're still doing it. Is there anything that any advice that we can give to these guys? And is there anything that we can say about what your wing is telling you? I know that when my wing is overloaded, every little input has an exponential value. Whereas, when I'm underloaded, it feels like I've got I feel like I'm taming the dragon a little more.
Right.
Talk a little bit about translating in speed flying.
Yeah. And I think, again, mentioning this would be anybody paramotoring, stepping down to a smaller wing, or even paramotoring in general. Like if you're coming from paragliding to paramotoring, where all of a sudden you got an extra 60 pounds on your back. And exactly what you said, everything's exponential. So I think that the two critical things is, one, you have to let the glider do what the glider is going to do. And two, you have to actively pilot. Now that all sounds simple and basic, but when you go from, say, a bigger wing to a smaller wing, on a bigger wing, you can screw up, you can overdo it, underdo it, and normally not too much happens. But as you get higher wing loading, you hit some turbulence, you need to allow that glider to move around. You need to allow it to flex. And your active piloting needs to be much, much more precise. And if you don't understand what we're talking about here, you got to get some more information, because that's a very lengthy discussion. So it's not overreacting to every little bump and burble. You hit some turbulence, your mini wing or your loaded paramotor wing, pushes left, pushes right. You kind of got to let it do its thing, and then be ready to do active piloting to correct the result. You don't try to correct the moment the glider starts to lurch left. You don't necessarily try to correct it right away. You need to let it do what it's going to do, and then do the active piloting to let the glider recover and continue on your glide path, if that makes sense. Where with a bigger wing, you just have more leeway, which is why we fly gliders the size that we fly. So there is some leeway, so that thing can bounce around a little bit. So we can do the wrong correction and still get away with it. But as you go smaller, what makes, in my opinion, flying heavily loaded gliders safer is that it is very, very, very maneuverable. Like you said, it's exponential. So if you tell it to do the right thing, it's going to do it really, really quickly. If you tell it to do the wrong thing, it's going to do it really, really quickly, which leads to issues and problems. So one of the big things that I encourage my students when they do downgrade, well, I shouldn't say downgrade, upgrade, downgrade, when they move to a smaller wing, is don't get rid of your current glider. Same thing when you move up in performance, when you go from your B to your C glider or your high B, don't get rid of your old wing and bounce back and forth for a little while and really appreciate the differences in your glider. and the different dynamic aspects of it before you get rid of your old workhorse that you're comfortable with and understand. And what we find is a lot of people hold on to their second glider or their old glider because they like to have that option and like to have that choice. But I think it's really important that you don't just go to a higher wing loading or go to a higher performance glider and be like, all right, this is what I got. I'm in for I'm in for the ride, because you got turbulence and stuff. Maybe you're not ready for that. So don't be afraid to take a step back.
That's a great point. Something that we do in free flying is we'll basically, I wrote down a note here, value of time under your wing. There's something to be said about the amount of time that you have under your wing. You can learn so much. Your wing can tell you so much. If I would argue that if you are going to step up, you're stepping down. Basically, when we go to buy a new wing, I'm not going to go from a B to a C without really making some calculated decisions. And I feel like the speed flying world will just cut right to the most extreme, and they're not going to appreciate the differences. They're not even going to notice what it was to go from an A to a B to a C because they don't have that time value. Maybe discuss the importance of that. Talk about some time values. How long should a person be flying?
That's an excellent question. And it's a hard one to answer. I mean, what I tell people is the time to step up a glider is when you need to step up a glider. And what I mean by that is, why do you need to go to a higher performance? If you're a recreational pilot, I just did a talk at the Red Rocks Fly-In, and it was all about being a recreational pilot. So a lot of accidents there from recreational pilots that all of a sudden stepped into mountain flying. So my first question is, why do you need to be on a higher performance wing? And there's a lot of good reasons. I'm flying a windy site. I am starting to compete. But if you're a recreational pilot, you may never need to step above an A or a low B. And I want to give people permission. That was my big take at this talk, to stick to something really basic and safe if you're a recreational pilot. If you're not flying several times a week and doing clinics and reading books and watching podcasts, make sure you have a reason for stepping up. As far as the time goes, it's hard to say. I like to see people on an A glider for at least a full year. And they go, what if I fly every day? Well, you don't know the seasonal changes. So it used to be in the old days, you had to be a P2 for 2 years before you could become a P3. And that
really
bugged me. Oh yeah, I was so mad. I'm like, why? I don't get it. And the reason was you needed to see those seasonal changes, because spring is very different than fall, is very different than winter. Or I'm sorry, maybe it was P4. Maybe the fastest you get to P4 was 2 full years. Because there were time frames in between. We don't have those anymore. And I think people don't take that into consideration, how different and dynamic the air can be at different seasons. I love telling the story. I just bought a Geo. I just downgraded. I went from flying a D glider to a C glider to a high B glider, and I'm flying a low B now, and I freaking love it. And a lot of people are like, why? That's my Geo in the background of my picture. They're like, why'd you step down to Geo? I'm like, because it accomplishes my goal, which is to fly safe and fun. I can't find many situations where I'm like, wow, I wish I had something higher performance. I'm not doing a lot of cross country these days. I don't do a ton of thermaling. I like to fly for fun. I travel a lot. I tend to fly maybe not so great air, because if it's good air, I'm normally teaching. I went to China a couple of years ago and got to pioneer a bunch of sites in China. And I was like, man, I am out there. I got no wind dummies. I got no wind, no weather stations. I want something that's going to give me the best chance of success and to land with a smile on my face. And I'm finding that flying a low B is pretty dang awesome right now.
That is a great point. We talk about coming to, and we have this misconception that you have to be flying the most dangerous wing to get the most out of your. It's not like a race, and it's not sports cars. We're flying. So what is it? Yeah. What are you trying to achieve? Right. Tony, by the way, just logged in. Tony's a free flight pilot. He's local, one of the local legends, and also transitioned from hang gliding and back in the day. He recently made a step from a D to a C. And so I'm glad, because now that brings him back down to me so that we can fly together, because he always leaves me in the dust. But there's something to be said about the joy of just going out and having fun and not spending a whole flight, scared you're going to take a collapse, worried about whatever. Just go and enjoy the flying day.
That's it, Robert. You're getting a low B.
Yeah,
That Alpina's up for sale if anybody wants it.
It's only got 10 hours on it, but it's worth about $8,000 right now because you have to wait months.
Oh, I know.
Well, 10 hours, that's 10 Blossom hours, so it's more like 100.
Yeah, that's true.
We have about 80 gliders in stock. We went big, seeing the supply shortage coming up. So mostly more entry level
shortage.
Yeah, we're sitting pretty, but yeah, man.
What were you saying?
I was saying it's really hard to get gliders now. You definitely have to plan ahead.
So you have 80 gliders in stock.
Yeah, probably more than that. We really went big.
Steve's the guy.
Unfortunately, not Alpinas. They're going to be more the entry level stuff, but
that's what we're talking about.
But yeah, I think that's just such an important thing, and I feel really proud of my stepping down, and it hasn't affected my flying at all. For speed wings, I fly the latest, greatest. I have 7 or 8. They're pretty aggressive. But for paramotoring, for paragliding, I love that I fly something very stable and very simple. Because again, I like to fly in rougher air, and I'm doing this for fun. I have a family, and I like to answer my phone and take photos. And so again, just looking at your goals. Why do you need to step up? Come up with some good reasons, bounce it off a few people, bounce it off some instructors, bounce it off the people you fly with, and listen to what they have to say. And if they're like, hey, are you ready? Have you taken an SIV? I mean, if you're flying a sea glider, for sure, you should probably consider taking an SIV. Anytime you step up, anything beyond a B, if you're going to be flying dynamic air, which generally, if you're flying a C or above, you're going to be a thermal pilot. And better know how the thing's going to behave. I mean, the interesting thing is I put some students, I shouldn't say this, not students, but new pilots on a sea glider. I'll use the Ozone Delta, for instance, and that thing's the most stable glider in the world. And they're like, wow, this doesn't feel any different than the training glider, until things go bad. And I think that's what people forget. They get a false sense of security. They fly Torrey Pines, they fly Point of the Mountain. The thing's awesome. It's bomber. It's rock solid. And then something happens in the mountains, and it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And I think really having the appreciation for that's important.
Yep. This show was birthed because that happened to me.
There you go.
Yeah. I took a whack, gave wrong inputs, went into a face down spiral, G'd up really, really deep, probably like 4 or 5 spins. It's on YouTube. I got
to watch it live.
Yeah. Tony was there.
I was like right next to you, but I was just far enough away that I'm like, who is that guy that's like hates this
crappy air,
this shear worse than me, because he really wants down really bad.
Get me out of here. That was just me screwing up.
That was insane.
Yeah. By the way, I have to mention an actual sponsor that has nothing to do with paragliding, American Allied Drains and Plumbing. If you're in the San Diego area and you're in need of plumbing, American Allied Drains and Plumbing is your company. Mention Paragliding Talk, and you'll get a 10% discount on your services. Their phone number is 844-777-9055. Also, the show is brought to you by Nebraska PPG. Josh Bowden runs the school in Nebraska. If you're interested in getting some top-notch training, you can reach out to him. There's a link in the description. Also, the show is brought to you by iFly Indiana Powered Paragliding. If you are interested in flying powered paragliders, no better place to get proper training than iFlyIndiana.com. Kevin and his team will get your feet off the ground. That's iFlyIndiana.com. Show is also brought to you by Lone Star Paramotor. If you're in the Lone Star state of Texas, you can reach out to Ron Turan, his team, for world-class training. LoneStarParamotor.com is the website. Absolutely amazing. Really appreciate the sponsors. If you want to jump on the sponsor bandwagon, reach out to me at the website, paraglidingtalk.com. Contact, and we'll get you all set up. It's not very expensive, folks. There's a reason why all the sponsors stay here. It's not expensive. I should raise my prices. I'm raising my prices. The show is worth it.
I still want royalties from that YouTube video. What do you got? Like a 500,000 hits on that?
Yeah, it is. It's probably it's a 250,000, I think, 160 or 170,000.
All those
Jim
people saw my living
CR120.
room.
Jim CR120 donated $10 to the super chat. Said thank you for continued quality, family-friendly content. We always try to keep it clean here on paraglidingtalk.com. Thanks to the moderation staff. Sean, Craig, Anthony. Yes.
They can't
Rip
get away with that.
Man.
You see,
What's
I would be impressed if you could have changed like the picture on each name as fast as you said them.
Oh, yeah, that would be slick.
Yeah.
Not there yet.
We'll get there.
Not quite there yet. Yeah.
OPN can do it.
OPM, yeah. They're pretty talented over there. OPM. So, Steve, I want to just let's talk a little bit about. I've got just a couple questions from the chat. I know there's been a lot of questions. They really like you, by the way.
Yeah, ask away. I just figured out how to look at some of those.
So, you're looking at the chat too now. Okay, so here's one. This is from Dave Wolf. He says, "How long does it take to be trained and signed off? Also, are there speed wing? Looks like ratings. Are there speed wing ratings?" And I know you mentioned that, but maybe touch on that.
Yeah, so the current program, and again, I think Yushka's working on revamping it, but the current rating, it's an M1 and an M2 rating. So the M1, you have to be a P2 pilot. So once you're a P2 with the United States Hang Gliding Paragliding Association, you can qualify for the M1. And it's just your basic rating. You know, we do it I tell my students, people that I taught to paraglide, it's usually 3 or 4 lessons. It's not super extensive. We're going to go over the basics of how trimmers work. We're going to start you on a big speed wing. Somebody asked if we carry flow. We have a flow Yodi 20 meter, which is basically a little bit of a smaller paraglider. You know, we're going to start you on something really docile and then just work your way down as you show promise. And I'll move at your own pace. Everybody's different. For somebody that didn't learn from us, it might take a few lessons more than that, but generally it's 3, 4, 5 lessons to get your M1 rating. The M2 is an advanced paragliding rating. When we initially designed the program, the idea was for that to be a very select few, almost like a demonstration team. So the idea is if we go to ski resorts and we're trying to get them to open up to speed flying, we could say, hey, there's a category of pilots out there that are like, you know, P5, you know, just like super, super dialed. And that was supposed to be what the M2 rating was. And not just good pilots, but mature enough to know what ski resorts might want to see and what they don't want to see. They don't want to see a barrel roll. They don't even want to see a swoop in the ski runs. They want to see something that looks very tame and safe. So the idea was of the M2 rating was to have kind of that caliber of pilot. It's gotten diluted. I don't remember what all the qualifications are for it. For me, the qualification is got to be a badass speed flyer pilot. If you know what you're doing, you don't have to do a barrel roll. Actually, I might dock that against you, but you got to be really dialed. You got to fly a variety of wings. I want to see that you've flown different disciplines of speed wings. Then I'll give you your M2 rating. I don't think there's any sites that require you to be an M2. There are sites that you're supposed to be an M1 to fly a mini wing there. But I think there's going to be a big shakeup with the mini wing ratings. And I just hope that Yushka still embraces mini wings. I'm fearful if we have more and more accidents, that might change. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's insurance, right? You know, a lot of people aren't rated. The skydive crowd, let's pick on them for a minute again. You know, a lot of them don't have any ratings at all, but they're out there flying speed wings, and I'm not policing them. I'm not coming up to every speed wing pilot saying, "Hey, let me see your license."
See your P2.
Yeah. I you know, I should, but I don't.
Right.
But as more and more, as the sport becomes bigger and you see more prevalence of it, I just hope that the insurance doesn't dictate an end to a rating program, because at least it's something. And I'll tell you, almost everybody that I've taught outside of the rating program, which there's been quite a few, they're like, look, I'm not going to get my P2. I'm just not going to do it. And I have a speed wing. I bought one on the internet. Are you going to teach me or not? And my answer is yes. If you have one and you want to buck the system, you can probably talk me into showing you a way to do it. but that's going to create all kinds of issues and problems down the road. So, I really think we need to embrace the training program and seek instruction.
Yeah.
And hope that we can keep that within the Yushka fold, because it's a huge benefit to have that insurance.
I like the idea of putting something together, even if it's a book. I mean, obviously we're doing something now, this podcast, and we're going to clip this and drop it on the podcast websites. Just before the show, I sent out a mass email to everybody. Make sure you go and vote for your person for the Freedom of Flight Leadership Award. That's we're going to nominate somebody, and the nomination is going to happen on the 14th. I can't remember. It's in the email. Anyways, we're going to November is right around the corner, so that's when the nomination is going to happen, and then later on they're going to get a trophy for you.
Now, might I just throw in there? May I just throw in there? Remember who spins that wheel, y'all.
Yeah. The free stuff will. You're like the dollar store, Sean. There's always something. You can always get something.
Hey, who doesn't like the dollar store? I mean, they got cheap TP.
You can always get something at the dollar store. Yep. The new $1 is $100 bill, though. I swear, the older I get, it's like I don't even get excited until I get 100. Yeah. And for Craig, it's 1,000. He doesn't even bat an eye. He's like, change.
We call Benjamin's Nantucket dollar bills.
Yeah.
And speaking of Craig Taylor, does Craig Taylor have something to share with everyone here? Something important?
I don't have anything to say but good things about Resurgence PPG. Please support those guys in any way you can. Smile.amazon.com will do it for you. It's real easy. Just sign up, choose a charity of choice. They are a 501c3 nonprofit for veterans by veterans. Help support Resurgence PPG. I'll drop a link in the chat.
That was nice. Craig was on top of that, man. That was smooth.
It's like he had an hour to prepare.
It was like he already knew what he was going to do. Sean Nafsker tried to catch him off guard, but it didn't work. He was on it. By the way, since we're mentioning sponsors, the last sponsor, Torrey Pines Glider Port. Ooh, so nice. If you want to get your P3, if you want to get your training, get training all the way up to the P4, Torrey Pines Glider Port is the spot. Come to Southern California, sunny San Diego, and you can get some training. Flytorrey.com is the website. That's FLYTORREY.com. Yeah, so awesome. We got just a couple minutes, literally 2 minutes. Gluteus Fannius asked this question. He said, how small is a speed training glider?
Again, it runs a gauntlet. When you say training, I always start people on something a little bit bigger, like a 19 or a 20 meter. But again, meters don't mean everything. So shorter lines than a paraglider. And then we work our way down. I have gliders as small as 8 meters. When people want to get into speed flying, the goal is to get them down to a 14-meter phaser. And that's about as low as I'm going to throw a student on. If they choose to go smaller than that, then that's an outside conversation after they get their mini wing rating. But I'd say anywhere from a 20. I can't think of any quote unquote mini wings that are smaller or bigger than a 20 meter.
Right.
But yeah, 19, 20, 18, somewhere.
Mike S. had this question. He said, ask Steve if the lead time for glider inspection is getting better. They had a technician get hurt and they were way behind at one time.
Oh my gosh. Justin White is the best repair guy in the country, period. We get gliders from all over the country, and he was injured in a speed flying accident. Would you like to take a guess what happened?
Ooh, he's doing a barrel roll.
Oh, hey, very good.
Winner.
Winner. Doing a barrel roll. Justin's one of the best. And it just kind of, it keeps hitting home. I mean, Justin's as good of a pilot as you will ever see anywhere in the world. And just messed up. Just did one too many, too low. Lucky to survive. Busted his wrist and his leg. So our repair times just got horrible, and we called everybody and we're like, hey, do you want us to send these elsewhere? And almost everybody said, nope, Justin's the only one that touches my glider. So no, we're still at 2 months. He's back full time, working his butt off. But
that's good.
Yeah, we're seeing a research. Our repair shop is really busy. We're seeing a lot more trees, a lot more speed wings, tons of paramotor, a big influx in paramotor accidents, trees mostly, and props. So no, we're still at 2 months. Sorry.
Good. That's glad that got cleared up. Mike S., thanks for the question. Yankee Paramotor. This is kind of probably a longer question to answer, but if you can sum it up in just a few seconds. Can Steve talk about the origin of speed wings? Were the first ones just a paraglider with some cells removed?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really started from skydivers that started flying skydiving canopies, kind of like base rigs with skis on. We played with cutting cells out of gliders to make them smaller. In the last podcast, I kind of dove into a little bit of the history of speed flying. It started right around 2000. If you want a little history, if you go to YouTube and Google "It's Fantastic Speed Flying," we made a movie for the Banff Film Festival. Myself,
Nice.
Matt Gerdes, Mike Steen, and Carson Klein. And it was basically explaining what speed flying was. And it was the very beginning of the sport. And we talk about the differences between speed flying and paragliding. It's so funny watching it now because what we're doing looks so basic, but man, we were pretty jazzed. And my favorite line in there is I said, I'm talking about the safety of speed flying. And I said, I want to be the old guy speed flying. And now I am.
Nice.
But it's about 20 years old. And I brought it over from the States. And really kind of started the birth of bringing wings over. Christiana Crochet as well with Jen brought a few over. So I was there from the very beginning. I spent quite a bit of time in Europe working with manufacturers. JL was one of the first big brands, and the Hell Racer was the name of the glider. So nice. And then Ozone jumped into the game and worked with Robbie Whittle on some of the early designs. So it's been around since about 2000, and basically an offshoot of merging skydiving canopies with the dynamics of paragliders.
Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to go to the after show. I know you're about to cut loose, but Steve may stay on for just a couple more minutes for the after show. If you're one of the Patreon supporters, or if you're on PayPal or a super chatter and you want to join the after show, just drop your information in the chat. Just say, I need an invite. And if you haven't already given me your email, then just drop it in the chat. One of the moderators will clean it up so that not everybody can see it. And then we'll send you an invite. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate everybody. Anthony Peregringo, Craig Taylor, Sean Nafsker, Tony Boyer even came tonight to do some moderation. Thank you. Really appreciate you, Steve. I would love to do another episode soon. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe when the weather changes over there and you can't fly.
Yeah, let's do it. We can dive into some paramotoring or paragliding or future of the sport or gear. I love it. This is super fun for me.
Yeah, right on, man. I love it. So we'll talk a little bit maybe after in the after show. So thanks for watching. If I don't see you on the air, I'll see you in there. Thanks for watching.